There are stories that begin with a spark, a dramatic moment, a sudden twist. But Chris Combs' story doesn't start with fire. It starts with a shadow left behind by a man he loved, and a fear he could never outrun. Long before 1,000-pound sisters ever existed, long before the cameras followed the Slayton siblings through triumphs and breakdowns, Chris lived with a haunting truth. His father died far too young. A big man, weighing over 400 pounds, and gone in his 40s. Gone before he could grow old, before he could become a grandparent, before he could see Chris become the man he is today. And the one thing Chris feared most was becoming exactly like him. For years, that fear stayed tucked away inside him like a quiet alarm, never loud enough to force him into change, but never silent enough to let him rest. He carried it into adulthood, through workdays, through family gatherings, through late nights when he lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if he had inherited more than just his father's build. Was he next? Was his life already on a countdown? When the show first introduced Chris, most viewers saw him as the funny, grounded brother, the glue between Amy and Tammy, the mediator, the one who could lighten even the darkest moments with a joke or a well-timed comment. But beneath the humor lived a man terrified of time, terrified of the scale, terrified of fate. He knew the numbers on the scale weren't just numbers, they were warnings. By the time 1,000-pound Sisters reached its third season, Chris had reached a point of no return. He was in constant pain, losing mobility, losing breath, losing hope. The same signs that once surrounded his father began circling him too. And in a quiet moment off camera, Chris admitted to himself something he had avoided for years. If I don't change now, I won't be here long. It was the realization that finally pushed him to make the choice that changed everything: gastric sleeve surgery. It wasn't a glamorous moment. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't staged for TV. It was a man looking at his reflection and seeing a future closing in on him, and deciding he wasn't ready to go. The months that followed became a battle, not just with his weight, but with habits, cravings, emotions, and decades of internal conflict. Chris pushed, stumbled, restarted, and pushed again. Every pound he lost felt like a pound of fear being stripped from his soul. Within a year, the transformation became undeniable. Nearly 150 pounds gone. A lifetime of struggle suddenly lifting off his shoulders. People around him saw the physical change first. His face grew sharper, his steps lighter, his energy brighter. But what really changed was something deeper. For the first time in years, Chris didn't feel doomed. He felt in control. And so, by the time season 7 rolled around, Chris Combs was a different man. Not just slimmer, not just healthier, but alive in a way he hadn't been in decades. He wasn't just walking, he was moving. He wasn't just surviving, he was living. And when he finished a 5K marathon, something that would have been impossible only a few years earlier, the pride in his eyes said everything. This was not a small victory. This was redemption. But there is a strange truth about television, especially reality television. Sometimes your greatest moments aren't the ones that make it to air. And just when Chris finally became the healthiest version of himself, the show stopped shining the spotlight on him. Season 7 hardly mentioned his weight loss. His transformation, the one that should have been a major storyline, became a footnote. Not because he didn't have progress. Not because he didn't have emotional moments. But because the producers had a different narrative to chase. Season 7 wasn't the season of Chris. It was the season of Tammy's skin removal surgery, an arc the producers decided deserved center stage. Tammy was experiencing a massive metamorphosis, and the network wanted the world to see it. Her villain-to-victor storyline dominated screen time, and every minute pulled the audience deeper into her journey. Chris watched from the sidelines, not jealous, not bitter, but aware. Television isn't about fairness. It's about story. And in the story the producers wanted to tell, Tammy was the phoenix. Amy became the villain. And Chris became background. But off the screen, Chris' real journey continued, quieter, steadier, and just as powerful. Still, fans started asking questions. Where was Chris? Why didn't we see more of his progress? Why give him so little airtime after everything he'd achieved? Some even accused the show of neglecting him. Others said he deserved more focus. And many pointed out the truth. Chris' story lacked chaos, and chaos is what reality TV feeds on. He wasn't breaking down. He wasn't fighting. He wasn't spiraling. He was winning. And winning isn't always good television. So while the cameras focused elsewhere, Chris moved forward with his life. He focused on his health, his family, his grandchildren, and the quiet joys that came from finally having control over his body again. But there was another question building online. Another storyline viewers desperately wanted to know. Did Chris and his wife Brittany have a baby? Rumors began circulating. Some fans swore they saw hints. Some claimed they heard whispers. Others simply hoped. But the truth was far more complicated. Rumors spread quickly in the world of reality television. A single photo, a vague caption, a quiet moment captured on someone's phone. Suddenly, the internet erupts with theories. And that's exactly what happened when whispers began circulating about Chris Combs and his wife, Brittany. Did they have a baby? Had they finally expanded their family after years of yearning? For a show that thrives on dramatic moments and life-changing milestones, fans were desperate for an update. They wanted to celebrate with Chris. They wanted to see him win, not just on the scale, but in life. But the truth was softer, more human, more painful, because the real story wasn't about a miraculous pregnancy. It was about longing. Brittany had always dreamed of being a mother, not in a loud, dramatic way, not with tears or tantrums or emotional breakdowns the cameras could exploit. Her dream was quieter, the kind of dream that sits calmly in a person's heart for years, whispering reminders that it's still there. She had watched Chris evolve from a man bound by his weight to someone brimming with health and confidence. She saw him playing with his grandchildren, laughing with them, lifting them, chasing them, movements he once struggled to make. And every time she watched him hold a little one in his arms, a small ache pulsed inside her chest. She wanted that too. She wanted a baby of her own. But life doesn't always bend to desire. Years earlier, Brittany had admitted to the cameras and to fans the truth she rarely shared. She struggled to conceive. Her age and weight created obstacles her body could not easily overcome. Under the warm glow of reality TV lighting, she spoke carefully, almost apologetically, as though her infertility was a secret flaw she needed to justify. And Chris listened with the gentle patience of a man who understood pain all too well. He knew what it felt like to struggle with a body that refused to cooperate. He knew the frustration, the helplessness, the self-blame. He knew how it felt when your own reflection became a reminder of everything you wanted but couldn't have. So when Brittany confided in him, telling him she wanted to be healthier, wanted to try again, wanted to keep hoping, Chris never once wavered. He simply nodded, took her hand, and promised to walk beside her through every step. But the path forward wasn't simple. If Brittany wanted to give herself a real chance at pregnancy, she would need bariatric surgery, just like Chris, Amy, Tammy, and others in the family. And though she considered it, though she knew it might help her achieve her dream, the reality was daunting. Surgery meant recovery. Recovery meant time. And time was slipping away. Her age wasn't just a number. It was a clock. Every month that passed felt both too fast and too slow. And while she weighed the risks and possibilities, rumors began circulating online. Someone misinterpreted a photo. Someone commented on a post. And suddenly the internet lit up with assumptions. Brittany is pregnant. Chris is going to be a dad again. They're expecting a baby. But they weren't. Not yet. Not now. Maybe not ever. And that uncertainty, that fragile space between hope and heartbreak, became the truth fans didn't see on camera. What the show also didn't reveal was just how full Chris' life already was. He wasn't just a husband. He wasn't just a reality star. He wasn't just a weight loss success story. He was a grandfather, and a deeply involved one. His grandchildren filled his world with laughter, chaos, and purpose. They reminded him of everything he fought for, everything he nearly lost, everything he gained back through discipline and perseverance. And though he longed to give Brittany the joy of motherhood, Chris also knew he wasn't waiting for his life to start. He was already living it. To fans who watched from afar, it was easy to frame Chris' life in simple terms: weight loss, health, family. But reality is never that neat. Behind every episode, behind every scene, behind every quiet moment where he sat off screen while someone else's storyline took center stage, Chris was building a life that made sense to him, not the producers. But 2025 brought something unexpected. A shift. A glow-up. A revelation the world had not seen coming. In June of that year, a clip from a local meet and greet began circulating online. Not a polished TLC segment. Not a scripted moment. Not a dramatic confession. Just a simple, handheld video captured by a fan from Kat Gaines' events, shaky, unedited, and more real than anything a camera crew could stage. Chris stood behind a table, signing autographs, wearing his signature black cap and a bright red shirt. But it wasn't the outfit that caught people's attention. It was him. The Chris in that video looked slimmer than he had ever looked. His face, once round and flushed from strain, now carried definition: sharp jawline, bright eyes, a natural glow that could only come from genuinely good health. He moved with ease. He smiled without effort. He looked happy. Truly, undeniably happy. And the deeper fans zoomed into the clip, the more they pointed out how much healthier he appeared. Some said he looked 20 years younger. Others said his transformation might be the family's most underrated success story. But then the camera panned, and the internet gasped for the second time. There she was, Brittany. And the woman the audience saw that day looked nothing like the one they remembered from the show. She'd slimmed down noticeably. Her face was radiant, youthful. Her confidence poured from her like warm light. Her posture was strong, her smile effortless, her energy vibrant. Fans flooded the comments. Is that really Brittany? She looks incredible. She looks 30. How did she do that? She looks better than ever. Her glow-up is insane. TikTok stitched the clip into reaction videos. Instagram accounts reposted the transformation. Reddit threads dissected the changes. It was the kind of moment producers dream about, but somehow, the show never captured. Chris and Brittany's real-life progress had become bigger than their on-screen story. And that was just the beginning. Because what the world didn't know, what the cameras didn't reveal, was that Chris' life was bigger than TV now. He had become a beloved figure on Cameo, a quiet star, a constant presence in fans' lives. And his following wasn't small. He was in the top 50 most popular Cameo creators in the world, surpassing big reality TV names like Big Ed Brown and Captain Jason Chambers. His rating, an impressive 4.89 out of 5, told the world everything it needed to know. Chris wasn't just showing up. He was delivering birthday messages, advice videos, motivational pep talks, inside jokes, heartfelt words to strangers who felt like they knew him. For $50, fans didn't just get a clip. They got a moment with a man who truly cared. And on Instagram, his 162,000 followers watched him grow, heal, and evolve. He shared updates, appearances, and personal milestones. In March 2025, he posted about Vet City Con at the National Corvette Museum. He shared tribute to his late mother's dog, a small post with big emotion, proof that his heart had never changed despite his success. If the show didn't give him the spotlight, life did. And as the world grew fascinated with his progress, one thing became clear. Chris Combs was becoming something he never expected. Not just a survivor. Not just a success story. Not just a supporting character in the Slayton universe. But a man whose journey resonated far beyond television. There is a strange truth about fame, especially the kind that grows from reality television. It does not arrive like a tidal wave. It doesn't shatter your world in an instant. Instead, it seeps in slowly. A comment here, a photo request there, a stranger at the grocery store whispering your name even when you're wearing a mask and hat. Fame becomes a shadow that follows you wherever you go. Sometimes it warms you. Sometimes it chills you. But it never leaves. And as Chris Combs' star quietly rose beyond 1,000-pound sisters, the spotlight began shaping the shadows in his life in ways he never expected. When the show first introduced him, Chris didn't think of himself as someone viewers would latch onto. He didn't posture for the camera. He didn't dramatize his feelings. He didn't shift his personality to fit a storyline. He was simply Chris. Funny, honest, occasionally stubborn, but always loving. At first, he assumed the audience tuned in for Tammy and Amy, for the chaos, the tears, the breakdowns, the emotional outbursts that made reality TV addictive. He didn't expect people to care about the quiet brother in the background, the one cracking jokes and offering support. But they did. Because in a world drowning in drama, viewers saw Chris as something different, a stable heart in a whirlwind of chaos. He wasn't there to be a spectacle. He was there to help. And that made him unforgettable. As the seasons passed, fans began connecting with him on a deeper level. They admired his work ethic, his unconditional support for his sisters, his determination to break generational patterns, and his ability to maintain humor even when everything around him collapsed. He became a symbol of perseverance, of family, of what it means to rise quietly in the background without demanding recognition. But being loved came with a price. At first, the online attention felt like a celebration of his hard work. Messages poured in. You inspired me to start my weight loss journey. My father died from obesity too. Thank you for sharing your story. You're the realest one on the show. Chris, you're saving lives without even knowing it. He read each one with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. To him, he wasn't a hero. He was just a man trying to live long enough to watch his grandchildren grow up. But social media is a double-edged sword. For every positive message, there was another, colder, more invasive, more personal. How much do you weigh now? Why didn't you get more screen time? Is Brittany pregnant or not? Are you still losing weight or did you plateau? You looked bigger in the last episode. What happened? And the one that cut deeper than most. Chris is boring. No drama. He saw that comment one night while scrolling through Reddit. He never said anything. He never responded. But the truth? It stung. Not because of the insult. Chris had dealt with far worse in his life. But because of what it revealed. The world tends to value pain more than peace. Drama more than stability. Chaos more than healing. Chris had worked tirelessly to build a life free from the storms that once consumed him. He had fought for normalcy, for balance, for health. But to some viewers, the absence of drama made him less compelling. And for a moment, just a brief moment, he wondered if his quiet success wasn't enough. But then something shifted inside him. A realization. A piece of clarity. He remembered why he started this journey, and it had nothing to do with television ratings, viewer engagement, or fan expectations. He didn't lose weight to entertain strangers. He didn't fight for his health to chase fame. He didn't transform his life to be dramatic. He did it so he wouldn't die young. He did it so he could stay alive for his family. He did it so he could become a better man. And when he grounded himself again in that truth, the noise of the world grew softer. But fame didn't just affect Chris. It shaped his marriage too. Brittany had never asked for the spotlight. She wasn't chasing attention. She wasn't drawn to cameras. She didn't dream of becoming a public figure. She simply loved Chris, long before the world knew his name. But with Chris' rise in popularity came public curiosity, speculation, and intrusive questions about their marriage, their intimacy, their plans for a family. The pressure was subtle at first, but it grew with each season. Brittany felt it most around the topic that haunted her, motherhood. Fans constantly asked about pregnancies. Rumors never stopped. Speculation grew louder every month she didn't post online. People didn't realize how painful those questions were. They didn't know how deeply Brittany feared disappointing Chris. They didn't know how heavy it was to battle infertility while strangers demanded answers she didn't have. There were nights she cried quietly in bed, feeling guilt for something she couldn't control. And there were moments when she wondered if walking into the spotlight with Chris had been a mistake, not because she didn't love him, but because she didn't love being judged for something so personal. But Chris never let her carry that burden alone. Whenever the pressure grew, he reminded her, You don't owe anybody a baby. You don't owe them anything. It was his way of shielding her from the world, just as he'd once shielded his sisters from their own demons. But there was another side of fame that blossomed beautifully, the connection. Through Cameo, Chris entered the daily lives of people he had never met. Not through polished videos, not through filtered posts, through raw, real conversations. He laughed with fans. He listened to their struggles. He shared advice grounded in his lived experience. And he delivered every message with the same authenticity he brought to the show. People fell in love with him not because he was dramatic, but because he made them feel seen. It wasn't long before he started recognizing familiar usernames, remembering faces, and forming small bonds with people who looked to him for inspiration. He had become something neither he nor the producers ever anticipated, a beacon of hope in a world full of silent battles. Not a celebrity, not a star, not a spectacle, but a man who showed what healing looked like. Meanwhile, his Instagram grew, slowly but steadily. 162,000 people now watched him evolve. Not for controversy or chaos, but for progress. Every update he posted felt like a warm handshake, a quiet reassurance that he was still here, still growing, still grounded. When he posted about Vet City Con in March 2025, fans flooded his page with excitement. When he shared a tribute to his mother's dog, thousands comforted him. It was a sincere connection, one built not on shock value, but on honesty, effort, resilience, and heart. Chris's transformation wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't chaotic. It was steady. It was genuine. It was slow-burning and powerful. And over time, fans realized something. He didn't need the spotlight to shine. He didn't need the cameras to validate him. He didn't need a storyline to be significant. Because the real Chris Combs, off-screen, off-script, off-duty, was far more compelling than anything television could frame. His story wasn't about spectacle. It was about survival. And survival, when done with grace and consistency, becomes its own kind of heroism. For years, Chris Combs carried a quiet determination, one not forged from television fame or glamour, but from the kind of grit you only develop after spending a lifetime fighting your own body. But by the time 1,000 Pounds Sisters Season 7 aired, something had changed. Not in Chris, but in the way the world saw him. Season 7 arrived like a storm of shifting narratives. The producers, always searching for the next emotionally explosive moment, decided to place a new spotlight on Tammy Slaton's skin removal surgery. It was dramatic, triumphant, tear-soaked, everything reality TV adores. And so, while Tammy's story soared to center stage, Chris quietly stepped into the shadows. He wasn't bitter, but even he couldn't pretend he didn't feel the silence. For years, the show had documented his milestones, his first steps into a gym, the fear in his eyes before surgery, the laughter that lit up his face when he realized he could walk longer, breathe deeper, live fuller. But in Season 7, Chris's journey was mentioned only in passing. A background note, a footnote in someone else's rise. Behind the scenes, some viewers whispered that he deserved more. That producers overlooked him because his storyline didn't carry explosive drama or personal chaos. Chris wasn't fighting with his wife. He wasn't spiraling emotionally. He was stable. And stability doesn't always make good TV. The same fans who once watched him push through painful workouts and breakdowns were now left wondering, wait, what happened to Chris? Why isn't he being shown anymore? The truth was simple. Season 7 needed a villain and a hero. Tammy became the redeemed hero. Amy, struggling with motherhood and emotional burnout, became the reluctant villain. And when a show narrows its focus to extremes, quiet warriors like Chris get swept into the periphery. Yet all the while, Chris kept moving forward, kept walking, kept losing, kept living. And whether the cameras followed or not, he had no intention of slowing down. While Chris continued transforming his body, another battle quietly unfolded behind the scenes, one with no diet plan, no surgery, and no guaranteed outcome. The whispers began months earlier. Did Chris and Brittany have a baby? Did they finally become parents? But the truth was softer, sadder, more human. Chris and Brittany had a dream, one many couples share, a home filled with the laughter of children they raised together. But life had dealt Brittany a different hand. Her body carried a history of reproductive struggles that no level of hope could erase. She shared her heart on camera once, voice trembling not with fear, but with honesty. She wanted to be a mother. She wanted to hold a child of her own. But wanting wasn't the same as being able. Her age worked against her. Her weight worked against her. Time worked against her. And Brittany knew it. When she spoke with Chris about it, she didn't just confess a desire. She confessed a heartbreak. The heartbreak of wanting something you feel slipping away year after year. She told him she was considering bariatric surgery. Not for appearance, not for fame, but because she refused to let her dream die without a fight. She wanted health. She wanted hope. She wanted a chance. Chris listened, not as a reality star, not as a man who had already lost 150 pounds, but as a husband who understood what it meant to battle your own body every single day. He didn't pressure her. He didn't rush her. He didn't make promises he couldn't keep. He simply held her hand and stood beside her, ready, if she chose that path, to walk it with her. Yet choosing surgery would mean delaying motherhood even further. The recovery, the weight loss timeline, the waiting, the uncertainty. And every month that passed reminded Brittany that time was not her friend. Chris already had responsibilities, grandchildren who adored him, family members who leaned on him, and his own journey to maintain. But when he looked at Brittany, he didn't see delays or complications. He saw a woman fighting for a family she had never stopped believing in. For now, rumors of a baby were only that, rumors. Whispers. Wishes disguised as speculation. But their story wasn't over. If anything, the dream burned brighter, because dreams that hurt the most are always the ones worth fighting for. By the summer of 2025, something extraordinary happened, something no storyline, no edit, no season arc could fully capture. Chris Combs stepped into the public eye again. But this time, he didn't just look lighter. He looked alive. At a local meet-and-greet event hosted in Kentucky, the cast of 1,000 Pounds Sisters showed up for their fans. Dozens of phones went up. People cheered, clapped, cried, and called out their names. It was the kind of small-town excitement that felt like a festival, warm, chaotic, familiar. And when Chris walked through the doors, heads turned. Not because he was a reality star. Not because he was filming. But because he didn't look like the same man at all. He wore a black cap pulled low, a red t-shirt, and a smile that stretched wider than the one he'd had during seasons of the show. His cheeks were slimmer. His shoulders more defined. His walk more confident. But the glow, that was new. There was joy in his eyes. A lightness in his expression. A calm that only people who've survived their own chaos seem to carry. A clip posted by Kat Gaines Events captured him signing autographs, laughing with fans, moving with an ease that felt almost surreal. He didn't look 150 pounds lighter. He looked years younger. But he wasn't the only one who stunned the crowd. Standing beside him was Brittany, quiet, reserved, gentle, but transformed in a way that shocked even longtime viewers. She wasn't just thinner. She was radiant. Her face looked sculpted and soft at the same time. Her posture was taller. Her smile was easier. Her eyes sparkled with a confidence that hadn't been there before. In the video, strangers wrote comments like, "Brittany looks gorgeous. She looks like she's 10 years younger." Is that even the same Brittany? The truth was simple. She looked like a woman returning to herself. A woman who had been lifting emotional weight for years and was finally putting it down. TikTok users reposted footage of her walking through the venue with her family. The praise poured in. Fans weren't just noticing her transformation, they were celebrating it. And behind every compliment, every surprised reaction, every whisper of awe, one thing was clear. Brittany was becoming something more than a background character in the Slayton universe. She was becoming a story of her own. A story still unwritten. A journey still unfolding. A transformation still happening in real time. And standing beside her was Chris, leaner, healthier, happier than he had ever been, proud of the woman who had walked beside him through every storm. Their season wasn't airing. Their storyline wasn't trending. Their screen time had been cut. But life doesn't need a spotlight to change you. In June 2025, without cameras rolling and without producers shaping their narrative, Chris and Brittany proved one thing: real transformation doesn't happen on television. It happens in the quiet moments, away from edits, away from arcs, away from scripts. It happens when you decide you are worth saving. In an era when reality TV stars fade as quickly as they appear, Chris Combs did something rare, something almost unheard of. He didn't vanish when the cameras stopped rolling. He didn't crumble under changing storylines. He didn't let limited screen time define his worth. He did the opposite. He grew bigger outside the show than he ever was inside it. It started quietly, almost accidentally, with a platform many celebrities ignored or treated like an afterthought. Cameo. For most reality stars, Cameo was a side hustle. A place to make quick money, send a few birthday messages, and disappear until the next request came in. But Chris? He treated it differently. He showed up. Every message, every birthday shout-out, every joke, every pep talk. He didn't phone it in, he connected. And that connection changed everything. By 2025, Chris wasn't just active on Cameo. He was one of the most successful reality TV personalities on the platform. Top 50 worldwide. Higher ranked than Big Ed Brown. Higher than Captain Jason. Higher than dozens of stars with bigger TV edits and bigger fan bases. His rating sat at an almost perfect 4.89 out of 5, a number most influencers would fight for, and he earned it through authenticity, not algorithms. For $50 a video, people weren't just paying for a message, they were buying positivity, kindness, humor, and realness. They were buying Chris. Birthday wishes, motivational boosts, jokes for fans going through hard times, shout-outs to people on their own weight loss journeys. He gave people hope because he had lived the struggle himself. He knew what it felt like to lose battles and still keep fighting. Fans kept ordering, then reordering. Because Chris wasn't just a former cast member, he was the most grounded, most heartfelt voice the show ever produced. And while most of the cast kept Cameo as something in the background, Chris did something different. He built a community. A community of people who weren't cheering for a reality TV character. They were cheering for a man who reminded them that change, at any age, is possible. But Cameo wasn't the only place Chris showed his staying power. Despite not posting daily, despite not chasing virality, his Instagram grew to more than 162,000 followers. Every time he shared something, thousands liked it. Because when he spoke, people listened. He posted updates about meet-and-greet appearances, denouncements for conventions, and moments that revealed his heart. In March 2025, he posted a tribute, not to a castmate, not to a milestone, but to his late mother's dog, who had recently passed. It was a small post. Soft. Personal. But it was proof of something real. Chris wasn't performing. He was simply being human. And in the world of reality television, a world built on drama, edits, and characters, being human is the rarest thing of all. Every transformation has two sides, the part the world sees and the part a person carries inside. For Chris Combs, the world saw the progress, the weight loss, the marathon, the healthier body, the lighter smile. But inside him lived a memory that shaped everything he did. His father. A man who died far too young. In his 40s, over 400 pounds, his life cut short by a body that had carried more than it could bear. That loss lingered in Chris like a shadow. Not a fear, not a curse, but a reminder. A reminder that fate was not guaranteed. A reminder that the same ending could have been waiting for him. A reminder that if he didn't take control, he might be next. So even when the cameras captured him laughing, cooking, teasing his siblings, or jogging for the first time in years, the fire behind his progress wasn't fame or applause. It was legacy. He didn't want to leave his wife alone. He didn't want to miss the moments when his grandchildren grew up. He didn't want to repeat a history written long before he understood it. That fear had once felt like a weight sitting on his chest, heavy and suffocating. But by 2025, that fear had transformed into something else, fuel. Every step he took at the gym, every meal he learned to balance, every temptation he learned to say no to, every morning he woke up and chose to fight. He wasn't just saving his life. He was rewriting the end of a family story. Even as the show drifted away from him, even as his screen time shrank, the truth was simple. Chris didn't need a storyline. He didn't need a dramatic arc. He didn't need chaos to stay relevant. Because his journey was never about spectacle. It was about survival. And the people who met him in person could see it. They could feel it in the warmth of his handshake, in the sincerity of his voice, in the easy smile that came from a man who had wrestled the darkest parts of himself and walked away stronger. Chris Combs wasn't a supporting castmate. He wasn't Tammy's brother. He wasn't comedic relief. He wasn't filler. He was something quieter, yet far more powerful, a man becoming the version of himself he always hoped to be. And the beauty of it all? He wasn't finished yet. In the world of reality television, loud moments win awards. Dramatic breakdowns dominate episodes. Clashing personalities generate headlines. But Chris Combs' journey proved a different kind of truth. Quiet victories are sometimes the greatest victories of all. By mid-2025, Chris had transformed beyond the lens of the show. No cameras captured his early morning runs. No editors highlighted the hours he spent in the kitchen perfecting balanced meals. No producer added suspense to the simple act of choosing health over indulgence. Yet in those quiet moments, his life changed profoundly. He had regained mobility. He had regained confidence. He had regained peace. And while Season 7 had focused on Tammy's surgery and Amy's struggles, Chris and Brittany were building a new life for themselves, a life defined not by narrative arcs, but by consistency, health, and love. At public events, fans were struck by the transformation. Not just physical, but emotional. Chris' glow was undeniable. His laughter rang true. His body moved with ease. And Brittany, once overshadowed in the edits, now shone in her own right, leaner, stronger, and radiant with confidence. Together, they looked like a couple who had faced obstacles beyond television dramatics and emerged stronger, not just surviving but thriving. And beyond appearances, Chris' influence grew online. On Cameo, he remained one of the most popular creators globally. He interacted authentically with fans. Every video became a chance to inspire, to motivate, to connect. Even strangers felt seen when they received a personal message from him, a small but powerful reminder that change is possible, even when the world feels chaotic. His Instagram followers, too, bore witness to moments of his real life. The announcements, the tributes, the family moments, the conventions, they all painted a picture of a man fully present, unbothered by the drama television demanded of him. Yet what struck people most wasn't the scale, the weight loss, or even the marathon. It was the humanity behind it. Chris had lived fearfully, loved deeply, struggled endlessly, and come out on the other side with humility, strength, and joy. And in doing so, he reminded people that transformation isn't just about appearance. It's about endurance. It's about heart. It's about surviving long enough to see the life you hoped for become real. Chris Combs' story was never about drama. It was about truth. And truth, sometimes, speaks louder than any television edit. Chris Combs' journey is not one defined by a single moment, a single season, or a single camera angle. It is defined by years of quiet determination, resilience, and love, a mosaic of effort that no edit could ever fully capture. By 2025, Chris had done something extraordinary. He had transformed not just his body, but his life, his relationships, and the legacy he would leave behind. Standing at public appearances, signing autographs, laughing with fans, he carried himself with a confidence born from hard-won victories. Every step he took reminded him of how far he had come, from fear of following in his father's footsteps to running a 5K, from struggling with mobility to embracing an active, full life. Every pound lost symbolized a battle won against history, against habit, and against expectation. And beside him, Brittany had blossomed. Once quietly struggling with infertility and the pressures of expectation, she now radiated confidence, health, and joy. Her journey had been deeply personal and profoundly challenging, yet she emerged stronger, standing shoulder to shoulder with Chris as a partner and equal in this shared chapter of life. The rumors of a baby had come and gone, whispers that stirred hope but did not define them. Instead, Chris and Brittany focused on what truly mattered: their health, their happiness, and their shared journey forward. They were building a life together without waiting for validation from a TV audience, social media, or gossip threads. That in itself was a triumph, a victory the world might not see, but one they would always feel. Meanwhile, Chris had cultivated a new kind of fame, one unshackled from reality TV edits or scripted narratives. On Cameo, he became a beacon for fans, offering personalized messages that carried sincerity, humor, and heart. He wasn't just a reality star. He was a mentor, a friend, and a living example of what transformation truly looks like. Social media, too, became a place where his story resonated. Fans marveled at his progress, celebrated his milestones, and shared in his quiet victories. Videos from local events circulated, showing him healthier and happier than ever, and Brittany's glow-ups became the subject of praise and awe. The duo's real-life story, beyond the constraints of television, was unfolding with authenticity, relatability, and inspiration. Yet, amid all this, Chris remained humble. Fame had not changed the core of who he was. He continued to prioritize family, care for his grandchildren, and nurture his relationship with Brittany. He remembered the fear of following in his father's footsteps, and he used that memory as fuel, not as a source of shame or sorrow. Every day he woke up, he fought not for accolades, but for life itself. In many ways, Chris' story is a quiet rebellion against the nature of reality television, a reminder that not all transformations need drama to be profound. While cameras chased spectacle and narratives were bent for ratings, Chris lived in a world of authenticity, endurance, and real achievement. He showed that victories can be quiet, personal, and deeply impactful, that the most profound transformations are not always captured by television lenses. That legacy is built in everyday choices, in the discipline of action, and in the courage to face fear head-on. And though season May 7th not have showcased his story, Chris' life speaks louder than any episode could. The world may have missed some of his milestones. The producers may have shifted the focus elsewhere. But Chris and Brittany, leaner, stronger, healthier, happier, kept moving forward. They kept choosing each other, choosing family, choosing health, and choosing hope. Their story is far from over. There are more marathons to run, more milestones to celebrate, and perhaps, one day, the dream of starting a family may yet be fulfilled. But even if it isn't, their journey remains a testament to resilience, to love, and to the power of personal transformation. Chris Combs' journey reminds us all, the greatest victories are not always televised, not always celebrated, and not always dramatic. They are lived, they are earned, and they are remembered, in hearts, in families, and in the quiet glow of a life well lived. The cameras may fade, the show may end, the seasons may pass, but the story of Chris Combs, the man who faced fear, defied history, and reclaimed his life, continues. And that story is nothing short of extraordinary.